Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this governing board meeting of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District to order. The date is Thursday, March 16th, and the time is 9:04 a.m. Thank you all for joining us. Before we get started, we have board members participating in person at our offices in Fresno, Bakersfield, and Modesto. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, here are some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell phone. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. After each agenda item, the chair will announce public comment. The clerk will recognize any public attendees who have indicated they wish to speak. And with that, that is the end of the statement. So if I could please have a roll call.
Mr. Bessinger.
Here.
Mr. Couch.
Here.
Ms. Lewis. Here. Mr. Mendez.
I'm here.
Dr. Pacheco Warner. Here. Mr. Pereira.
Here.
Mr. Preciado.
Here.
Mr. Rickman.
Here.
Mr. Robinson. Mr. McCauley. Dr. Sheriff.
Here.
Ms. Schicklien. Mr. Chiesa.
I am here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
That's great news. And I also want to recognize we had a couple of board members that aren't here today because of dealing with the floods back in their districts or their areas. And we're fairly lucky, I think, to have an actual quorum today. It just happens. Things are not getting any better, even though the rain has stopped. I think it's going to get a little worse before it gets better. So we appreciate all they're doing, even though they're not with us today. I also want to state something really quickly that I have to step out of the meeting at maybe about 10:15, and Vice Chair will be taking over the meeting. Just so if you see me walk out and things change, don't be alarmed. They'll probably be so excited they'll be alarmed when I come back, right? So, all right, I'm going to ask everyone to please stand, and I'm going to ask Samir if you'd lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Samir. Okay, we're going to move on to item 4, which is approval of the consent calendar, items 14 through 17. Does any board member have any item they wish to pull for comment? No. Okay, seeing none. Move approval.
Second.
The
If
first,
you ask for public.
yeah. After the second. Is there any members of the public that would like to comment on the consent calendar, any item on the consent calendar?
Bakersfield, do you have any members of the public?
No members of the public in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, any public comment?
No public members in Modesto.
Thank you. No indication online or in person in Fresno on public comment.
What's that? Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go ahead, all those in favor of the consent calendar. We don't have to do, on consent, we can do just voice call, right? No.
No, you have to do a vote.
That darn Bakersfield Modesto thing's got me all twisted. Please.
Okay, Mr. Bessinger,
Yes.
Mr. Couch,
Darn yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa.
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item 5, public comment period. Opportunity for anyone to speak on any item that is not on today's posted agenda that's in the jurisdiction of the Air Board. You are limited to 3 minutes, and it looks like you are ready to go. Yep, please state your name if you could.
Hi, my name is Nancy Richardson. I'm going to speak very briefly about what a wonderful thing it is that EPA and Caltrans might just be taking a closer look at the possible air quality impacts and health impacts of the new interchange that's proposed. It's hard to think that that wouldn't be part of what's happening. You sure can't plan for mitigation if you don't have a really good idea of what the impacts might be. And this is an ideal time to do the planning for that, and it should be in detail because it's a very big deal. There are 3 schools very close to that, and it's not really a juvenile detention center, it's a juvenile justice center that's nearby. So all of those and the other people that live there deserve our best look. And why would we not use this opportunity for really excellent planning? You've all made excellent progress in the last number of years. So why not continue that progress and do the best possible job on this so that we can protect the air quality and the health of our people? Thank you.
Hey, Nancy, could I just ask what interchange specifically, because we're not all from the Fresno area?
Oh, the southeast Fresno
Okay,
one nearest they call it the Juvenile Detention Center
okay.
and the 3 schools.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
American Avenue.
Bakersfield, do you have any public comment?
No members of the public in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comment?
No public comment here in Modesto.
Thank you. Online, we have Connie Young.
Welcome, Connie.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Well, I'm Connie Young, Fresno resident, retired registered nurse, and volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, also known as CCL. And I'm a member of the Earth Day Fresno planning team. So today, instead of talking about climate change, if you can believe it, I'll tell you about my other favorite topic, Earth Day, or actually Earth Month. There are a lot of cool things happening next month, many of which will raise awareness about air quality and ways to improve it. A youth-led Interfaith Climate Summit sponsored by the Fresno Interfaith Climate Alliance will be held on Saturday, April 15th at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. The keynote speaker will be the Honorable Ron Good, tribal chairman of the North Fork Mono Tribe, who is an expert on conducting cultural burns. On Wednesday, April 19th, the Fresno State Sustainability Club will hold its event called Earth Day at Fresno State. The annual community-wide Earth Day celebration, known as Earth Day Fresno, will be held at Fresno City College on Saturday, April 22nd, which is the actual Earth Day. There will be local environmental nonprofits, including Citizens Climate Lobby, green vendors, food trucks, kids activities, EV test drives, live entertainment, and more. The Earth Day Fresno planning team is grateful to the Valley Air District for its generous donation to this event and to Jamie Holt for arranging for the Air District to have a booth there. This will be a great opportunity to promote the Air District's Healthy Air Living initiative and incentive programs. I'll even mention 2 other local events on the 22nd, even though they conflict with Earth Day Fresno. Fresno County Supervisor Sal Quintero is hosting a Family Kids Fest at the Fresno Fairgrounds. And the Kings River Conservancy is hosting a spring fling on the Kings. Farther afield, an event called Salt of the Earth, Cultivating Climate, Food, and Land Justice will be held on April 21st and 22nd at Madera Community College. According to Google, 2 Earth Day events will be held in Bakersfield on April 22nd and 1 in Stockton on April 23rd. No doubt there are more. I'll be glad to send you information about these earthy events, and I hope you'll be able to attend one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Next online, we have Janet Dietz-Kamay.
Morning, Janet.
Good morning, board members, Chair Chiesa, and staff members. Climate change, one of the greatest challenges of our time. The term global warming refers to the long-term warming of the planet. The term climate change encompasses global warming, but refers to the broader range of changes that are happening to our planet. These broader climate changes include rising sea levels, shrinking mountain glaciers, accelerating ice melt in Greenland, Antarctica, and the Arctic, and shifts in flower and plant blooming times. Human activity, especially greenhouse gas emissions, is considered the dominant cause of temperature increases. The greenhouse gas effect refers to the way the Earth's atmosphere traps and absorbs solar energy. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was formed in 1988 to collect and assess evidence on climate change. Since then, it has produced a series of alarming climate models. Under these models, most of the planet's ice cover would melt by the end of the century and trigger a cascade of irreversible consequences, including flooding strong enough to engulf entire cities. Paleoclimatology, or the study of changes in climate throughout Earth's history, uses evidence found in tree rings, ocean sediment, coral reefs, and layers of sedimentary rocks to determine that current warming is occurring roughly 10 times faster than the post-ice age warming. By 2060, the cost of interaction on climate change is predicted to reach a staggering $44 trillion, with the highest anticipated GDP losses in the Middle East, Northern and Sub-Saharan Africa, and South and Southeast Asia. In 2018, there were 14 extreme weather events that resulted in more than $1 billion in damages. The average number of people exposed to heat waves has increased by approximately 125 million since the beginning of the century. The science is clear. Our climate is changing. Most marginalized communities, historically shut out of decisions made for their futures, will bear the brunt of the damage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet.
Next, we have Veronica Aguirre.
Morning, Veronica.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Veronica Aguirre. I'm a member of the community of Avenel, and what I wanted to take the time this morning was to bring up months back, I had attended one of the board meetings and I brought to your attention a concern that many in my area, not just my community, but our area have, and that is with the complaint process and how a violation is given to a polluter or somebody that is violating some type of process. Like we have the Avenel landfill that, our community suffered from the nuisance of odor. And with the inability of trying to get a violation for them because they were unable to confirm the complaint. And many a times it was because they weren't able to address it for possibly like the next day, and the nuisance no longer existed. So I wanted it, that still has not been attended to. It still continues to be an issue. We're in an area that is, a rural area. We have communities like Kettleman City, Coalinga, Huron. We all have to go through different things, like even the fires from spontaneous combustion that I was told by one of the inspectors that is very hard to actually give a violation to something, but we know that it exists. We have fires that are coming from mulch that is being set at the Avenel landfill. We've had a few fires that actually the Air District has come out to, and we know what the problem is, and that continues to be a problem. These are the communities that would benefit from AB 617, and it is very concerning to hear that AB 617, the funding could possibly be cut. We need your support. We need this to be taken seriously. We look to the Air District because the Air District is the entity that can give these violations. We as community members continue to be watchdogs and we report these issues, but what is the point if nothing is being done to them? and we need your assistance. These are the communities that are being ignored. And it's time that you need to step up and to help us do something about it because it's unfair. These are the frontline communities that are most impacted, the most disadvantaged, and the ones that everyone is getting funding for, and we're being ignored. So I'm trying to take this time to bring this back to your attention and hope that it can be put on the table, that we work on this process because it is not taking care of the people that they should be taking care of. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Veronica.
No further comments online.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and close the public comment period. We're going to move on to item 6, a report on the district citizen advisory committee activities manual. You're sitting in the furthest seat from the microphone. There's like 100 other seats you could have sat in.
Manuel always sits in there.
Thank you, Roger.
That's Manuel seat.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members and staff and Samir. Manuel Cunha with the Citizens Advisory Committee. Again, great turnout. I'm excited about our CAC. Attendance is huge. We're getting all the groups representing and coming, and we're excited about it. And I think the staff here is able to see we're getting the 3 different groups, so that's great. In your packet, you have the items that was done on March 7th, the CAC. And the first one is the executive director, or Samir, presented to the CAC what you did last month on the agricultural burn issue in relationship to the small farmers, increasing that amount from $1,300 to $1,700. And so that was a great opportunity, and that is really helping. Except right now, Samir will be talking about tomorrow's event, but I went out to try to see if I can get a chipper. I was told that I had to get a Sikorsky copter to go out to pick it up out of the mud because it's in the middle of a field. So I abandoned that idea immediately. I thought that would bring too much press, picking up a chipper and bringing it over to the Farm Bureau tomorrow. So, but again, I want to thank from the standpoint of the CAC for the work that the staff has done on that ag burn. It has really helped the small farmer under 100 acres. Number 2 was the plan, the 2.5 plan that the staff has been working on. John and Emily both did a presentation. It's just frustrating on that 2.5 plan of what we've been doing and everything, and what we still have to do with the word contingencies, and we don't even know what that definition is. And I know the staff's been waiting very patiently to get EPA to give us an answer, but a lot of debate and discussion on that item. Number 3, which is a big item, was the governor's budget funding, that he has stricken out all the farmer funding. All the agricultural burn funding has been removed. And it's kind of disturbing to have that happen, because that was the intent. And the farmer program is the most cost-effective program in the country, even in California, for the greatest amount of NOx reductions and the fastest. And it has benefited, and Samir will talk about that for tomorrow's thing. But again, we are all sending a letter from the CAC from all 3 areas to the governor, asking him and the legislature to reinstate those funds, especially for the farmer program, because we have a deadline of December 31st of this year for 11 tons of NOx coming from the farm tractors. And we've done close to 19,000 tractors already. And that's tremendous. But to just wipe out the funding, leaving the farmers in even the situations they're in, just like you counties are having to deal with the water. We need the water, no doubt about it. We're not going to badmouth that, but to help these farmers just doesn't make sense. The ERCs was the last item, second to the last item on there, and then ARB on 617, along with the district, working with the EJAG communities, doing their jobs to help them get better and getting the funds to them so they can implement the project. So great discussion. We went over time. I don't know why that keeps happening on my watch. I don't know what the problem is. Don't anybody say it either, please. But again, that's the report, and thank you. And again, I hope all of the counties and the cities are making it through the water and the damage. I know last night when I came from LA, the outside of Delano, the freeway the water had come across the freeway and they shut it down to one lane going north, just outside of Pixley there. And it was quite a lot of water. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad to hear the attendance is outstanding at the Citizens Advisory. That is great to hear. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, item 7, accept and appropriate a little more than $13 million in state cap and trade funding for the board approved South Central Fresno Zero Emission Delivery Truck Demonstration Project. And Todd will be presenting.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, Todd DeYoung, your Director of Grants and Incentives. I am here this morning seeking your board's approval, as you stated, to accept and appropriate more than $13.1 million in state funding for a really innovative zero-emission truck demonstration project. So just by way of a very brief background, this is not news to anyone on this board, but mobile sources, as you know, contribute over 85% of the Valley NOx emissions and a majority of the air toxic impacts in Valley communities, and particularly those located near major roadways throughout the Valley. Unfortunately, the district does not have the jurisdiction to regulate mobile sources. That jurisdiction primarily falls under the state and federal purview, but as a complementary strategy to the district's ongoing stationary source control program, your board has prioritized demonstrating and deploying very new and innovative clean air technologies as part of our comprehensive strategy to attain our clean air goals. So to support the district's strategy, in February of 2021, the district submitted 2 proposals under a joint funded CARB and CEC zero emission drayage truck and infrastructure pilot project solicitation. The 2 projects were, the first one was to deploy 50 zero-emission battery electric Class 8 Tesla semi-trucks and install the supporting infrastructure at the Pepsi Beverages Company located in the South Central Fresno AB 617 community. The second project that was proposed was to deploy, again, 50 zero-emission battery electric trucks, these were Volvo trucks, and install the supporting infrastructure at a large distribution center operated by Albertsons in the Tracy area. In January of 2022, about a year ago, the district was informed that both of these proposals were selected for full funding for a total award of about $36.5 million. In February of that year, last year, we actually brought these projects to your board, and your board approved the staff recommendations at the time to accept and appropriate the funding and move forward with these projects. Just a little bit more background on the actual solicitation itself. It's funded with a combination of CARB, low carbon transportation or cap and trade funding, as well as CEC Clean Transportation Program funds. The goal of the program was to support large-scale deployments of on-road zero-emission Class 8 drayage and regional haul trucks, as well as the necessary zero-emission infrastructure needed to support the operation of those vehicles. The projects are intended to reduce criteria pollutants, as well as toxic air contaminants and GHG emissions in and around these freight facilities and ports. And it also was, one of the major goals was to provide economic, environmental, and public health benefits, particularly to low-income and disadvantaged communities within those areas. So as I said, we brought these projects to you over a year ago, and during the past year, we've been very, very busy trying to get these projects off the ground. Unfortunately, due to some significant delays at the state level, CARB and CEC were not able to offer us grant agreements prior to the end of last fiscal year. So prior to June of 2022, we weren't able to get those contracts executed with CARB. We've subsequently been able to execute both agreements with CARB and CEC for the South Central project, South Central Fresno project. And that's why I'm here today, because that action necessitates an amendment to this year's budget, the 2022-23 district budget, to again accept and appropriate these funds and amend the budget. We're continuing to work closely with CARB and CEC, the funding agencies, all of the project partners, to determine the ongoing viability of the other project, the Albertsons project up in Tracy. We have hit some hiccups there. We're working through that, and we've also developed a potential alternate project should that Albertsons project ultimately not go through. So we've been working hard on a potential alternate project to take the place of that Albertsons project. Should we need to, we'll return to the board with any future budget amendments or other recommendations related to that second project, whether we go forward with Albertsons or the alternate project. We'll bring that back to your board at the appropriate time. So a little bit more information on the actual South Central Fresno Pepsi demonstration project. Again, it will deploy 50 zero-emission battery electric Tesla trucks and the associated charging infrastructure. The project is reported to result in more than 1 million zero-emission miles per year at that location, in and around that location. The goals, again, include reducing criteria pollutants, toxic air contaminants, and GHGs in and around that facility, as well as the truck routes in and out of that facility. Another key component of this project is workforce development. The project is expected to develop an alternative fuel workforce training opportunity for local high schools and colleges, as well as the Pepsi employees that work at this facility. The project is located in the South Central Fresno AB 617 community. It aligns perfectly with the zero emission priorities that are outlined in the board approved SERP for that community. And we all know that emission reductions from mobile sources are critical to reducing the pollution impact within the South Central Fresno community. The project is expected to be fully deployed by mid-2023, June or July of this year. We expect to have all those trucks on the road and operating, provided that we can get the appropriate approvals in place. So the total project cost is just over 26 million, 26.3 million. And this is a great project. It's a 50-50 cost share. The state grant amounts are providing half the funding, and all of the partners involved are putting up the other half of the funding. So it's a great public-private partnership. The district will serve as the lead entity for the project. We'll be in charge of all the contracting and administration of the project. We have an initial list of partners, although this list is about 2 years old now. And so what we're doing as part of this project is we're going back and we're going to ensure that all of the partners are still the appropriate entities to be involved in the project. So this initial list may change slightly depending on the results of that analysis that we'll undertake as part of the contracting process. But you can see it includes all the technology providers, everybody who's involved in installing and operating the electric vehicle charging infrastructure, the utilities, the high school and Reedley College are involved in the workforce training aspect. So it really is a broad coalition in this project. So upon board approval today, should your board approve this project, we'll establish those agreements and then move forward with the project implementation. So with that, the recommendations today are to accept the 13.1 million in state funding for the project, approve the budget resolution to amend the budget, and then authorize the executive director to enter into any agreements necessary to successfully administer the project. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Is there near zero infrastructure there too? Or is it the workforce component is just going to be on the electric side?
I believe at this facility, it would just be related to the zero emission. So it's both, you know, the trucks themselves as well as the infrastructure. Yeah.
These are the best items that come before us right here, of all things. Okay, Member Bessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great presentation. I have a question. I think 2 council meetings ago, there was a discussion with our public transit component in Clovis. As of 2026, one in every time you purchase a fleet of public transit buses, 25% of them must be electric. In 2029, all of them have to be electric. And I think this might be a good example for at least to have school kids being able to go see this. And because we're going to need, well, there's a lot of things we're going to need, but we're certainly going to need people who want to do this job. And if we can get them early on, and this way they can find out what courses they need, and maybe Reedley College can come up with a specific program for that. And I would talk to my friends over at Clovis Community College also. But getting obviously we have infrastructure issues. We're gonna have grid issues, but if we don't have the people, I think this would, and you have kids who, they wanna get into something green, and this would be a perfect opportunity. So if we could extend this to some of the other school districts, that would be nice.
Absolutely. I think, again, this was kind of our initial list of participants, but if we find that we have other school districts or other entities that are eligible and willing to partner, we'd love to talk with them and start that conversation.
Thank you. Member Mendez.
Yeah, a couple, I'm for this. It might be a little condescending at time, but, one of the things is, okay, this is for 50 trucks.
Correct.
So you obviously, if they're route trucks, you're gonna have to have 50 stations to charge them up. Is that a correct
So
assumption?
I think they're going to deploy them in so that they're able to share chargers. I don't know that there's actually 50 individual chargers for each one of these trucks. They are return to base trucks. These are regional haul.
Right, I mean, it's all local stuff.
Yeah,
But
correct.
still, usually your local stuff goes out in the morning and comes back in the evening.
Right.
So, you would probably need 50 stations
Yeah.
to charge them up. And the other deal is, what is the actual cost per truck?
That is a good question. And it's something particularly with the Tesla trucks that we're still looking into. If you look on their website, it's like $200,000 for a base truck. We're still kind of in the negotiation phase and looking into the specific cost, but the budget for the project does have, I believe, that $200,000 per truck number associated with it.
Yeah. And then, now these trucks have reefers on them,
Yes,
so that the reefers would run off the batteries.
correct.
They wouldn't have a auxiliary engine like
That's not my understanding, right?
yeah,
right.
like a diesel
No,
truck
Oh,
usually has an auxiliary engine for the reefer.
correct.
Yeah.
Counterproductive.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just, I'm just looking at the mechanics,
Yeah.
and just remind Drew, Reedley is part of State Center.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, I know, but I just had to throw that in there. So it's the same school system.
Mr. Chair, just wanted to add one quick thing, because Supervisor brought up a really great question that is something that we're going to have to examine closely with these types of demonstration projects, which is the infrastructure side of this. It's one thing to have the vehicles. It is a whole different challenge to actually set up the infrastructure for those trucks. There are issues, for example, like because of the sort of the pipeline of electricity, say going into a facility, you may not be able to charge, for example, a certain number of vehicles all at the same time. And so there's a lot of technology now going into what's called load management to where, whether it's the routing side, but also like when they're plugged in, how do you actually prioritize the charging depending on sort of what the capacity of the trucks is. So there's a lot of work that's going on into trying to figure out the charging infrastructure side. And we know, for example, that in the Valley, for a massive deployment of this, we need to do some really intense planning and some really intense infrastructure upgrades across the Valley to really be able to do larger deployments. So one of the board's priorities has been, we talked about this during the legislative platform discussion, Dr. Pacheco-Werner had brought this point up as well, and we included it in our platform, is the need for us to have a really good understanding about what it takes to charge. And so these demonstration projects are actually going to be really good on the ground demonstrations of that, to try to fine tune those issues and maybe highlight for broader deployment, what are the things that we need to be thinking about.
Right, that's why it's called a demonstration project.
Exactly.
So we're gonna work out the problems.
For sure. Dr. Pacheco-Werner?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say I'm so excited to see what we saw in Modesto coming to Fresno. And I know that your team is, they're just whizzes. And I think that it'll be so exciting. And particularly to some of the things that Supervisor Mendez talked about, seeing the difference, I think also across the Valley will be really important information, even to give to the state in terms of what are the differences that we see in terms of setting up the infrastructure and running it. I mean, even just within the same companies, some of the similar companies. I did want to mention that there was a 15-minute Bloomberg video about the Modesto project. So if you guys didn't see it, maybe Samir or folks have it somewhere, but I'll be really interested to hear back from you, Todd, what we do learn from that in terms of the differences. And now that you have 2 data points, right, you can do some comparison, because I do think that that's important information for us to think about, especially as we as funds unfortunately may become thinner, to think about how to best use those in the areas where it'll be hardest, right? So, yeah, thank you.
Very good. Member Preciado. It's a car alarm. I thought it was an Amber Alert.
I guess I want my turn.
Member Preciado.
Yes, I just would like to comment that 3 weeks ago, I went to a tour in Bakersfield. I got invited by to go, and they actually, I was able to ride in a hydrogen bus, which is actually, and they did talk, they gave a lot of information. Actually, they had an all-day class, but I wasn't able to attend the class. But while I was at the bus, BC College mentioned that they already have classes where they have maintenance and looking into having the workforce. So they're already offering those classes in a hydrogen bus. It's actually an electric bus, but that is run by hydrogen gas. So the potential of that is to run about 500 miles a day if they can. So they don't have to stop and charge the electric batteries. But that's something they're already doing. They already have, I believe it's private now, but they have a filling station where they have the hydrogen gas. But they're really, really focusing on transportation, and actually rural areas need longer distance than the big metropolitan city that can actually run within the city over there, and like looking at running 50, 60 miles a round trip just to provide transportation services to a rural community. So it's important to, I think collaboration goes a long way. So probably be a good idea to kind of reach out to see where other colleges are offering those classes already, so we can implement in really like Mr. Messenger recall. It'd be nice to see that collaboration, so we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sheriff.
You'd think after 3 years I could figure out how to get disentangled from my hands. It's new every time. Thank you. This is a pretty thin packet for what I think is a really important project. And there's a lot of work. There's a lot of collaboration, as Dr. Pacheco Warner pointed out. This is bringing Modesto to Fresno area. This is really extraordinary, and it's building on projects that the district has been involved in and expanding. The questions about infrastructure, very important questions. Well, I am confident that Pepsi has thought that through and are expecting they're not going to strand a bunch of capital, but that in fact this is something they've started in Modesto doing, they're having success with, and we get to see that expansion and how does it work in a different environment. And as been mentioned, it is a much more complete package, training for a workforce for this future. So it really is an extraordinary partnership and opportunity. I think in some ways this also addresses the question. I appreciate Nancy Richardson. Thank you for your testimony. The issues raised about infrastructure development that will be encouraging more of these distribution centers, and being sure that we understand how that impacts greenhouse gas and particularly air quality, particularly in these most impacted neighborhoods. And this is one kind of response that we're working on, and I think we'll be demonstrating as part of a successful response to that. So thank you for that. And yes, want to do this.
Perfect. Thank you. I see no more board comments, so we're going to go to the public.
Bakersfield, do you have any public comment?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comment?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. One member of the public in Fresno.
Good morning again, Manuel Cunha, Nisei Farmers. First thing, Todd, we support it. We support the word test, projects, pilot, scientific review, because that's not what we're going to find out. Over the last year and a half, and even as of 4 weeks ago, with the Air Resources Board and their staff on the electric forklift issue and tied to facilities, and especially agricultural facilities. About a year, not even probably 4 months ago, at the Farm Bureau, PG&E's Western Regional representatives came to a meeting by CARB, EPA, and everybody. And here's the issue. We're building 2 packing house facilities in the town of Sanger, a rural community, no problem. But we just received a letter, and it was forwarded to Chairman and Steve Cliff and Randolph. In the letter, PG&E flat out tells the farmer that they're building the packing houses, different people in the town of Centerville, outside, and Sanger, rural communities. Flat out says, we are not going to be able to provide any power to your new facilities. We are way overloaded in both areas, and we don't look for a future to expand those facilities. That's 2 packing houses. Madera, the airport area. 2 of our packing houses are running on one is running on natural gas generators, has to get permits. The answer was, in the meeting, in a public setting meeting, 10 to 13 years before they could get power to the farmer or to the packing house at the airport, alone even in Sanger, alone even if it's in Reedley. But if it's Los Angeles, San Francisco, or Sacramento, somehow the power is there. I don't know why that is. Maybe we need to put our own nuclear plant right in the middle. The problem I'm seeing with all of this, every bit of it was no infrastructure is there. Why did CARB back off on the Albertsons project up in Stockton, Modesto? I have a funny hunch it's going to be power. It's probably going to be distribution centers. 50 trucks. Remember the meeting we had out in Avenel with the trucker, the farmer with the onions? He did a waiver for 10 trucks because the manufacturer wouldn't have trucks ready for 75 weeks, 2024. 2010 trucks are going to have a DMV extension, so they got it. He just got notice the truck price went up $72,000 per truck. Now, he hasn't got any of them built. But to even have electric trucks, to get 50 trucks. But the part that really bothered me about PG&E, Mr. Chairman.
Please wrap it up.
When they told us that our farmers can't get the power for 10 years, and they tell a rural community, go pound sand, and we have to use generators. Something is wrong, and I hope, Todd, that we can really make ARB realize that, yeah, it's all great. But if there's no infrastructure, why should you force? These are jobs we're going to lose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Online, we have Kevin Abernathy.
Welcome, Kevin.
Had to tap unmute to speak. You guys copy?
Yeah.
Yeah, what Manuel brings up, Kevin Abernathy, Dairy Cares and Milk Producers Council. What Manuel brings up is 100% accurate and true. Supervisor Mendez had brought up the deal on cost. I actually have a bid in front of me from Pappy on an electric Class 8 truck. It is $499,000, not $200,000. We've seen a huge increase in the cost. And I think we support these projects. As Todd and others know, I'm trying to get as close as I can to zero emissions by using electric trucks, yard goats, tractors, you name it. The issue that we're having in the rural environment is we do not have the ability to get power past what we currently have in those areas. They're not extending any upgrades. And in some cases, we're needing megawatts of power to electrify. And again, support what we're doing. We want to do it. We want to be part of the solution on the dairy side. But at the same token, we are running into obstacles with the utility companies that at this point are insurmountable in pushing out great ideas and potentially some great projects to better public health years in the future instead of today. With that, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments, Kevin.
There's no further indication of public comments online or in Fresno.
Okay, thank you. And as I said, these are great projects. Dr. Sheriff had pointed out that large companies, they can take a chance on the first tranche as a pilot project, but they have a pretty good idea they're going to be successful with expanding here. We do underwrite a component of this. The taxpayers obviously underwrite a component of this, but yet you see all of the partners coming together. You referred to that also. So, I see how well received it is in Modesto. Some of us were there. This is going to be a great project again, a 617 area. And I'm as excited about this as I am with just about everything. I do appreciate the comments from Kevin and Manuel regarding infrastructure, because that's always going to be an issue here in California in the foreseeable future. And we're going to try and deal with that as best as we can. And hopefully the state sees the same thing in the utilities. They feel the same pressure that we do. So with that, I'm going to bring it back for action.
Approve.
Second.
Jacob Warner. All right, roll call, please.
Okay, through the chair, I just wanted to make note that Ms. Shuglian is present now.
I didn't notice her.
It's hard.
She's quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Betzinger,
Yes.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Ms. Shuglian,
Aye.
Mr. Chiesa.
An emphatic aye.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you, Todd. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8, receive and file district's annual air toxics report for 2022.
Mr. Chair and board members, I'd like to introduce, giving his first presentation in front of the board, one of our star managers here who works really hard in implementing the air toxics program here at the Air District. Seth Lane is here to present on this item. So I want to welcome him to the board setting and appreciate him stepping up and giving his first presentation to the board. So with that, go ahead, Seth.
All right. Thanks, Samir. Appreciate that. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Today I'm going to be presenting the district's annual toxics report. So we'll get started. The state and federal governments have identified more than 1,700 substances that, when suspended in the air, can end up in your body through various pathways and can cause a risk to your health. These substances, at sufficient concentrations and exposure, can potentially impact human health. These impacts can vary, but when dealing with air toxics, we're talking about impacts such as cancer risk or long-term chronic impacts or short-term acute impacts. Some of the more common air toxics examples are diesel particulate matter, or DPM, benzene, hexavalent chromium, and formaldehyde. These toxic pollutants are not the same as criteria pollutants, those for which EPA has established national ambient air quality standards, like nitrogen oxides and PM 2.5. But importantly, even small quantities of air toxics are distributed throughout the air we all breathe, and they get created from a variety of sources such as cars and trucks, industrial sources, and consumer products. To address toxics in the Valley, we actually operate a multifaceted and comprehensive program that addresses toxics on various fronts. We refer to this approach as the district's integrated air toxics program. So within the Integrated Air Toxics Program, we combine local, state, and federal requirements under one umbrella. The first one I'm going to discuss or mention is that the district implements the state's air toxics hotspots regulation, AB 2588. And that regulation addresses health risks from air toxics from existing operations in the valley. But we also evaluate new and modified sources of air toxic emissions, making sure we don't allow any new health risk situations to be created from new or expanding operations. We implement a large number of regulations designed to reduce air toxics by on a facility basis as well. And we also assist land use agencies by providing our expertise related to addressing and mitigating potential air toxic risks from new development projects under CEQA, or California Environmental Quality Act. And lastly, a major component of our integrated air toxics program are the clean air projects funded through the district's grants and incentives programs. And these have resulted in major emissions reductions, including toxics, such as DPM, or diesel particulate matter. And through these efforts and other efforts as well to reduce air toxics in the valley, there's been a major reduction in cancer risk from breathing air in the valley since 1990. An indicator of that is the benzene emissions trend in the valley, is shown here on this graph. Over the years, benzene emissions and the associated cancer risks with benzene have been reduced by 90% when compared to previous levels. The information we're looking at here is based on the samples and data collected by the state at multiple monitoring stations that are here in the valley, supporting actual health benefits to the public. So implementation of air toxics hotspots, AB 2588, began in 1987, and since then, the district has evaluated air toxics for thousands of facilities. We utilize the state's emissions inventory criteria and guidelines regulation, which we also call the ECR, which was recently updated in 2022. The updates included many revisions, such as adding additional substances to be evaluated. It actually more than doubled the amount of substances required for reporting. And it also added new applicability criteria. Using these state guidelines, existing facilities submit plans and reports to characterize and quantify their air toxic emissions, which are then reviewed by the district. Using that information, the district performs a prioritization. Okay, so a prioritization is a conservative screening level health risk assessment. The results of the prioritization puts facilities in one of three categories based on the potential the facility emissions may create a health risk. So the three categories are low, intermediate, and high priority. Low and intermediate priority facilities require no further assessment under the state regulation at that time. Intermediate priority facilities are required to submit updated air toxics information on an ongoing schedule for reevaluation. But high priority facilities require further assessment because they may create a health risk. So to assist in making that final determination, a more refined health risk assessment, which sometimes we call HRAs as well, is required, and it's using complex and super health conservative computer modeling of the potential emissions to create the health risk. And these health risk assessments take into consideration the many things. First, the concentration of the toxics in the air, the potency or toxicity of each chemical, the length of the exposure, how the pollutant is released into the atmosphere or emitted, several factors such as the height of release, the direction it's going, the exit velocity and temperature. We also account for wind direction and speed using meteorological data, and the proximity to receptor locations. And then based on the results of that health risk assessment, if a facility was determined to be a high-risk facility, they would have to hold a public meeting to inform their neighbors of the potential risk from their facility. And the highest risk facilities would have to make modifications to their operations to reduce the risk they're creating to the point below that level of risk. Okay, so this slide provides a summary of all the work we've been doing for AB 2588 in the program, and as we continue to assess facilities in the valley. We've rolled out the assessments in a phased approach, and the number of facilities in each phase is identified on this slide under the main bullet. Since 2016, we've completed assessments for more than 6,900 facilities through 2022. Of those, 5,404 are conditionally exempt under the state regulation from further assessment at this time. And 1,408 are intermediate priority facilities, and those are requiring periodic update summary evaluations. So of those 6,900 facilities, 106 health risk assessments were performed because 106 facilities were determined to be high priority. And through the health risk assessment, they were determined to be either low risk or intermediate risk facilities. There's currently 19 facilities that are classified as high priority. So they're being evaluated with a refined health risk assessment. All facilities categorized as intermediate priority or risk have continuing emission reporting requirements under the program. And this is to ensure that a facility gets reassessed if necessary. So the previous slides on hotspots were all about existing sources and emissions. But regarding new equipment and new sources of emissions, we analyzed the potential health risk of every single operation for which we issue a permit if that operation emits any amount of air toxics. And we also help lead agencies do the same thing under CEQA. For stationary sources, we do this with a risk management review or RMR. This process is really similar to the prioritization, screening, and health risk assessment process I described earlier for hotspots, but for new or modified sources, we utilize worst case potential emissions since the equipment's not yet in operation. So we perform this analysis for all proposed increases in toxic emissions, and very health conservative worst case conditions are assumed in our models, such as potential emissions, which is the maximum allowed emissions levels, worst case air conditions, and long-term exposure. But the end result's always the same. The facility has to propose the best available controls for any toxic air contaminant emissions, and if the operation cannot pass the risk assessment with those emission controls, it's not an approvable project as proposed. We also implement a large number of regulations, and they're aimed at specific types of facilities or operations and with the goal of further reducing air toxic emissions in the valley. The district is responsible for implementing through our permitting and inspection processes, local, state, and federal regulations and rules that reduce air toxics. The state regulations are called Air Toxic Control Measures, or ATCMs, and they apply to a wide variety of sources with a few mentioned on this slide. And the federal regulations are generally called MAC standards for maximum achievable control technology. There are approximately 150 MAC standards for various source categories, examples being aerospace coatings and wood preserving. So the district also focuses on incentive grant programs, and they bring about reductions in NOx and PM. But they also achieve collateral reductions in air toxics as a result of these clean air projects. So the district has administered more than $5 billion toward clean air projects in the valley, resulting in over 240,000 tons of emissions reduced. Key components of these emission reductions are the multitude of grant programs aimed at diesel engines. For example, thanks to replacing or retrofitting trucks or tractors or ag irrigation engines, there have been over 30,000 diesel engines replaced, and it's resulted in the reduction of more than 17,000 tons of diesel particulate matter, or DPM. And this is important because diesel PM is one of the most potent carcinogenic air toxics, so reductions in diesel PM is critical to reducing the public's health risk. So while diesel PM is a primary pollutant contributing to the valley's cancer risk, we have seen a major reduction in diesel PM. Based on CARB's 2019 California Emissions Projection Analysis Model, or CPAM for short, which the data is reflected in this chart here, there has been a 75% decrease in diesel PM emissions in the valley. And this trend is expected to continue. So there's another front now related to emission inventory and air toxics, and that came about through AB 617. It requires the state to develop a uniform statewide system of annual reporting of criteria and toxic emissions. And emissions inventory data is critical to understanding emission sources and related health risks. So as a result, CARB created the regulation for the reporting of criteria, air pollutants, and toxic air contaminants, or CTR for short, which is a new regulation requiring statewide enhanced reporting of facility stationary source emissions, including criteria, but also including toxic emissions. CARB's implementation schedule in the regulation is a phased approach. The first phase, it included the largest facilities based on mass emissions, and the subsequent phases are based on facility type or sector or activity level. The district is already and will continue to be implementing the requirements of the new regulation for valley facilities, collecting it and sending the compiled inventory data over to CARB. Once CARB collects the data, they plan to update their inventory on an annual basis, but now we'll be including toxics information. And our understanding is they'll eventually utilize this data on an online mapping tool. So we also work with community and business stakeholders in the San Joaquin Valley and to understand air toxics and achieve reductions in air toxic emissions. We have a really important role in helping businesses understand and comply with the many air toxic rules and requirements. We always work directly with applicants who need assistance in reducing their potential air toxic impacts from new sources of emissions. And we continue to expand our ability to assist land use agencies in the Valley to deal with air toxic impacts under CEQA. Importantly, we continue to engage the public through community involvement as we implement our integrated air toxics program. For instance, we regularly work with community members to understand our role in the permitting process and understand the concept and the conservative nature of risk analysis. We provide bilingual notices of significant permitting actions and bilingual notifications under AB 2588 when and if a high-risk source is identified. And as we work with continues to implement the monitoring, reporting, and community emission reduction mandates under AB 617, the community's understanding of the district's comprehensive air toxics program has become even more important. So also under the umbrella of 617, the district is continuing to work with CARB and Valley facilities to implement the new enhanced criteria and toxic emission inventory reporting regulation as mentioned. So with that, we ask that your board receive and file this annual air toxics report to the community and authorize staff to distribute the report and make it available to the public on our website as is required under the state hotspots legislation. So that concludes the presentation. So I'll turn it back over to the chair for discussion.
Good job, Seth. That was great presentation. Member Bessinger.
Thank you. Very good presentation. You said there are 19 high priority facilities. Without naming the specific facility, what's the general category of these?
Oil fields. So even though they're very far from houses, there are a few oil field sources that are close enough to other businesses that they require us to do a health risk assessment.
That would be primarily benzene, or what would the pollutants be generally?
Yeah, the primary pollutants such as benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, xylenes, and some other things, because they have some combustion operations too.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Dr. Pacheco-Warner?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for a great report. I do read these every year, and they become more readable every year. So I'm either you're doing something right, or I finally know what I'm doing a little more. So I do think one of the things in terms of like the presentation of the tables, it'd be interesting to see them sorted by risk category other than alphabetical, just to understand sort of like the magnitude of what we're dealing with in terms of the intermediate risks too, in terms of like, is there a cumulative, and to that effect as well, also interested to see this by geography, because I'm wondering if, again, because we have so many in the intermediate risk, if there's a way we can use this data to also help us think about how we use some of our community air protection grant programs and sort of like where you all already know this information, but I think it'd be helpful for us to see that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for the report. I'd like to go back to screen 4 for the benzene emission trend. For my education edification, the numbers were quite high in 1990 and started going down. But we had some areas of spiking throughout this reporting period. Was there a reason for that? Since the trend was going down, but then we'd have a spike up now and then.
I'll take a first crack at that, but the general answer is we don't fully. That's a great question, but I don't think we fully understand it. But when you look at a trend like that, though, benzene is driven by a number of sources, but that could be for anything from gas stations to some of the mobile sources, some industrial sources. There's the implementation of some really key regulations along the way. That's why you're seeing some, really tremendous reductions. Everything from vapor recovery at gas stations and enhancing those requirements to other regulations. You also see growth along the way, right? So you've got different factors that are going on. You've got regulations that are kicking in. You've got a population growing, probably some increases in the number of sources. So the general trend, as you noted, is significantly declined by over 90%. But at times you could see, there's conflicting forces at times depending on what's going on. That's my general response to that. But if we have more information to share, we'll certainly get back to you on that.
Good.
But
I just didn't.
do you want to add anything to that stuff?
Sounds good.
Thanks, Barry. Thank you.
And I appreciate that because this is a learning curve for me on why this may have happened. So thank you very much for the answer.
Learning curve for all of us. Dr. Sheriff.
Well done. Oh, everybody else didn't score. Oh, I'm sorry. That's on the 6-point scale for skating. Thank you for that. On the graph on page 10, I love graphs. I'm a visual person. I think they are. That's really helpful. You're thinking about the challenges.
Through the chair, Dr. Sheriff, can you turn your microphone on?
Sorry. Thank you for that. The graph on page 10, thinking about the challenges ahead, looking, well, we've got other mobile, on-road mobile, and stationary sources. And so I want to understand what the component in the other mobile is. That one, we're foreseeing some terrific progress in that over the next 10 years, but it will continue to remain the major challenge ahead. So what included another mobile, I'm assuming, it's off-road, it's agriculture, it's construction. Locomotives.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget locomotives who aren't regulated.
Yeah, so it's everything but what you see on the road.
What rough percentages for those?
Well, we'll have to get back to you on that, because I think we'll have to get back to you on that. We don't have those numbers in front of us, but it's going to be each one of those, I think, will be a big chunk. The construction / non-road engines, whether it's in agriculture, construction, or whatever, it's going to be a big chunk. Locomotives are going to be another big chunk. So that's not a very specific number there, but just big pieces of those.
Well, you can
but
see that
it's
one
available. We
anytime
can
you see the
submit that back.
train by.
Yeah.
If you can see it, it's not good. Smoke coming out.
Sure. All right. I see no more board comments. Comments online?
Bakersfield, do you have any public comment?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comment?
There is no public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. Do you have online Connie Young?
Yes, hi,
Welcome
thank
back.
you. Yeah, thank you. So Connie Young again, and thank you for this thorough report and for overseeing this incredibly important and complicated program. Your comment about the carcinogenic effects of the diesel particulate emissions just reminded me of an article I recently read about the Fresno Unified School District purchasing five new diesel school buses. And so I realize I'm a little off topic here, except for the connection to carcinogenic effects of diesel emissions. And I just wondered, how is that allowed to happen? Of all the vulnerable populations to be exposed to these emissions, I can't imagine why the school district would purchase diesel equipment. So, thank you.
Thank you. Roger, we forgot to, we skipped here in Fresno. Come on up.
Good morning, Roger Isom, California Cotton Ginners and Growers Association, Western Agricultural Processors Association. Couple of comments about the district, but let me first recognize the young man for making the presentation today and being indoctrinated to this. I don't think you fully understand. I actually ran the initial toxics program for Fresno County and worked on when the district was unified as starting that program. And you've never been indoctrinated until you've been told by a auto repair shop when you ask him how many benzene or how many cans of brake cleaner they have, that he told me he could bring them to me and I could count as he placed them into my body in certain cavities. That was how we ran the program back then. But in all seriousness, I do want to say a couple of things. One, that this report is good and that, but it should be celebrated. I don't think you understand fully how monumental a task this was. As again, you know, the benzene's one chart, but if you look at all the air toxics that have been addressed by this district and how many facilities in the very beginning were high priority to the point where we are today, it's monumental. I mean, that's an understatement. And I know that because I was involved back then, but the district doesn't get enough credit, doesn't get celebrated. It's very much equivalent to the chart behind me of how much has actually been done to improve air quality here in the valley. So the district deserves a lot of credit. And to that point, one of the things I want to recognize the district for is they do ongoing risk assessments. One of the things that I'm very appreciative of is they've actually come to my office and I can bring my members, either the cotton gins or tree nut facilities, to my office, and they set up computers in my boardroom and help my members complete those reports. You know, we don't have to hire consultants. We can get the information right there. And, you know, me and my staff are also helping, but it makes it super easy to comply. It helps them because it gets done sooner and quicker, but it's a lot of effort. And I just want to recognize the district and thank them for doing that to help in this effort. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, one last comment online. Janet Dietzkame.
Thank you. This report brings to mind to me, and I'm not sure exactly what state the diesel is in this report, but when we bought our house, there was no freeway and no business park. Since 180 passes by our house, and there is a business park, a large business park development in between Armstrong and Fowler. And these are introducing diesel in our atmosphere here in the form of the business park traffic regarding the large trucks that are coming and idling in this area. There were hundreds of homes in this area built before these projects were done. There are many, many more houses being built. One house at the corner of Armstrong and Belmont is right below the freeway. I can't imagine it was allowed to build those there. But the diesel part of this is my concern. And again, I don't know if you're referring, what state you're referring the diesel, but for us here, it's the diesel being used to move the vehicles. And I appreciate Connie Young's comment because I have been very concerned for years about school buses and the amount of diesel emissions children are exposed to, both in getting onto the buses and when they board the buses after school, when all the buses are all lined up. So I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you. There's no further indication of public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. And as I understand, item number 8 is a report by our staff, and we'll be accepting the staff report, and there's no vote on it.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I would recommend in this case, since there is some action provided, to release the report to our talking to council on this. I think a vote would be appropriate on this one, just to provide that authority to distribute it. Otherwise, just as a receive and file, typically there wouldn't be a vote, but if you wouldn't mind perhaps taking a motion and
I move.
taking a vote, that would
We
be appreciated.
accept this report.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have roll call for a vote, please?
Mr. Bessinger,
Yes.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Yes.
Ms. Shuklyan. Aye. Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, you steered us through our first vote as vice chair.
Okay, and we'll move on to item number 9, to discuss air quality research priorities and potential air quality symposium. And I'm not sure who will take this.
All right, thank you, Samir, and thank you, Chair, members of the board. John Klassen, Director of Air Quality Science and Planning, and let me just get into some background here. So for decades, the district, we've relied on sound science for a number of things that we do here, for much of what we do for air quality strategies, air quality improvement work, looking to maximize public health benefits. And in this coming year, we anticipate supporting different research studies, different projects that come up, different project proponents come to us asking for support in grant applications and various things, providing data and review. But it is important that we reevaluate these areas of priority, what is most important to us to go forward in this next year to help guide us, any possible changes to our priorities. And we want to place a particular focus on what's going to help us develop effective regulatory measures, continue to reduce criteria pollutants, and improve public health. And this is really key for a number of things that we're currently working on now. The work that we've done before is laid the foundation for much of the work we're doing now. So we talk about a few things here in this slide. Our latest attainment plans, our 2018 PM 2.5 plan for all the PM 2.5 standards. Research played a big role in help setting the foundation for that. The 2022 ozone plan that your board adopted just a few months ago. And we're continuing to implement community level emission and exposure reduction strategies through AB 617 in South Central Fresno, Shafter, Stockton, and Arvin and Lamont. These SERPs that we put together there are important, that the research is setting the foundation for what's most effective to reduce pollution and improve public health. And this is all going to continue to be more important going forward as we develop new strategies. We wanted to mention too the foundational work that was done for much of where we are now. The progress that we've made now has come through the San Joaquin Valley-wide Air Pollution Study Agency. And this is a collaboration, a cooperative research collaboration through a number of agencies, us here at the district, the US EPA, CARB, other air districts in the area, various stakeholders that have come together to propel some major research campaigns. And we note a few of them here: the California Regional Particulate Air Quality Study and the Central California Ozone Study. Both of these were very foundational to develop our understanding of what were the different sources that are driving particulate matter in the valley, and for ozone to help develop good, effective strategies going forward. So the work that was done there set the foundation for a lot of the progress that we've made to date. And through this effort, about $60 million was spent through private and public funds through a number of research projects over the decade since the study agency has been developed. And these projects and these studies have gone on to help develop technical tools, different approaches to help make sure that we're developing effective regional emissions control plans. So getting into the first area priority that we want to focus on this next year is SGMA implementation and dust control for foul lands. So we've talked about SGMA, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which is focused on bringing groundwater uses to a sustainable level over the next 20 years. And this is going to be done through groundwater sustainability agencies that must develop plans to reduce water usage. And because of this, there are estimates out there that there could be at least 500,000 acres of irrigated cropland taken out of production, some projections all the way up to 1 million acres in the valley. Because of that, there's some concern of potentially more windblown dust on foul land. So the effort here would be to evaluate any measures to see what is possible, what could be effective in reducing windblown dust from foul lands, and more in-depth research is needed into these potential areas. So in this area, we would continue to work with partners, Valley Ag stakeholders, CARB, USDA, NRCS. The Public Policy Institute of California has been doing some work in this area, and the study agency to understand these measures and what can be effective to help reduce any potential dust from this implementation of SGMA. PM 2.5 in general, continuing to study PM 2.5, like I mentioned, back in the early days of the study agency, some of the big projects helped set the foundation for what is driving PM 2.5 in the region. We need to continue to assess this. A lot has changed over time. We've reduced emissions significantly, as we show in different charts, and the progress that we made. So what are the different components that are driving PM 2.5 now? What are those major components? How can we use that information to help develop effective strategies going forward? And this is really going to be key. If the EPA does set a new PM 2.5 standard in the near future, we're going to have to develop a new attainment plan for that, a new strategy. There's going to be modeling analysis that's going to have to be done. And so having some more updated information about what's driving PM 2.5 now can be very helpful to develop those strategies. Next area of focus we want to place a focus on is looking at the public health improvement across the San Joaquin Valley. Like I mentioned, we've seen significant reductions in ozone and PM 2.5, other pollutants over time. And this has been done through a lot of investment and sacrifice by stakeholders, businesses, residents, and a lot of public health has been improved because of that. So there are a number of researchers that work in this area. We want to be supportive of that, looking at how much things have improved, not only just on an air quality side, but the public health improvements from all the work that we've been doing here together over the past few decades. Focusing now on the community level here, we have a number of community level air quality strategies, most of it driven by AB 617 that we talk about a lot. There are community emission reduction programs developed for our selected communities. We have community air monitoring networks collecting an extensive amount of data. So a lot of information is coming together, a lot of data, a lot of strategies, getting reductions. What are the benefits of all of that? So the focus here would be to work with researchers on assessing all of this data that's coming in, all the reductions that we're getting, what are the public health improvements, and this will help build effective strategies going forward for our selected communities and any other communities that could come in the future. Another area of focus that we have here is alternatives to ag open burning. As you know, we've launched our Ag Burn Alternatives Grant Program a few years ago, which has been very successful. And this is really developed through demonstrating some new technologies, tripping and grinding equipment, understanding how effective they can be. SGMA implementation could result in even more orchards and vineyards being pulled in the coming years, having an even bigger demand for this type of alternatives to be out there, this type of equipment. So in this area, we want to continue to invest in new technologies. If there are other alternatives out there that could be used, that could be successful, we want to focus efforts there, work with anybody who's trying to develop these different technologies. Another area of focus is transportation emissions and their impact on the valley's air quality. We talk about this a lot as well, where mobile sources, especially heavy-duty trucks, are the largest source of NOx emissions in the valley. And it's really not possible for us to attain these standards without big reductions in heavy-duty truck emissions. And it's really critical for us to understand where these emissions are happening in the valley, what time of the day they're happening, time of the year. A lot of the truck traffic is pass-through traffic coming just through the valley from the north to the south. What's the impact of those emissions? And trying to get a better grasp of all that can help CARB and EPA develop effective measures. They have a number of measures in development. And in the coming years, there will be more. So having a better understanding of that can really help them develop more effective measures to get emissions reductions from heavy-duty trucks in the coming years. Next area of focus is looking at the nexus between air quality and climate change. So there's been a lot of focus in this area as we have warmer temperatures, recent drought conditions they've exacerbated wildfire impacts in recent years. A number of local and state and federal governments are looking at this, trying to better understand and work through climate measures and mandates. And there could be opportunities for reducing criteria air pollutants in this area as well. So for those who are working in this area, we want to connect with researchers, help understand the work that they're doing. What is the connection between these mandates that they're working on, and how can we also reduce criteria air pollutants at the same time? And the last area of focus here, of course, is wildfires and the impact on the valley's air quality. As we know, the past few years, we've had severe wildfire seasons, a massive impact on the valley's air quality. We've had some of the worst wildfire impacts we've ever seen on PM 2.5 on record for the valley. We've had elevated ozone concentrations as well. And of course, this all severely impacts public health. So a lot of researchers work in this space, understanding the effects of wildfires on public health. And if there are any projects going on where they're looking at specifically impact to San Joaquin Valley, public health, and the concentrations that come from wildfires, we want to work with them and help support that and provide data and support where needed. So just a few next steps here. With your board's direction on these different priorities, we'll focus and provide that support to any researchers who are doing work in this area. They may be putting together grant applications. We can be supportive of these areas, and we can work with these partner agencies and universities, stakeholders to provide data, provide review of some of the work, and potentially co-fund some projects if that makes sense. And if we are going to co-fund something, we'll bring it back to your board for approval of these specific projects. And the last point we want to make here is we would like to do an air quality symposium in the next few years. We've done a number of these in past years. We've had a focus in past symposiums on PM 2.5 research, on lawn and garden equipment, transboundary ozone impacts, alternatives to ag open burning. We feel it's time to do another symposium here soon within the next year or two, focusing on bringing in air quality researchers, public health experts, other stakeholder perspectives, and we'll bring this back to your board as necessary to discuss the symposium, what the focus should be to make sure it's as successful as possible. And that's it for the presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clausen, for your detailed report. So I'll move to the board members for any comments. Dr. Sheriff?
Yeah, just want to thank you for that and agree that, the scientific basis is essential for our success in terms of identifying the challenges properly and then finding the best way to proceed, getting the most bang for the buck, if you will. So this really is important priority. Just a couple of observations. One, the Valley Public Health improvements. Well, it's the health. That's why we do this. That's what drives everything. That's why we bite into these very difficult challenges. So that's obviously very important. The community level air quality strategies, I'd also add research in that area is important to maintain support for 617, to maintain funding for these programs, to expand these programs, because we need to be able to demonstrate what is the impact of these community driven projects on air quality and greenhouse gases. So that's obviously very important. The nexus between air quality and climate change would add the heat impacts as an important other area for study and learning more about. And that's both in terms of heat impacts on health. Heat turns out to be the #1 environmental killer worldwide. When you think about hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, all these natural disasters, heat over and over, and we will be facing more of that. But also how heat's going to impact secondary PM 2.5 and how that's going to change the challenges we face. And would just put a pitch in, I think the air quality symposia we've done in the past have been terrific. Definitely planning one within the next year, and just suggesting, climate change and air quality, that would be a great topic to bring together air quality researchers, public health agency and stakeholder perspectives, because that certainly is long-term foundational to our challenges. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Pacheco Warner?
Thanks. Just fully support and thank you for this. And also, when you're thinking about the symposium, I know that CARB funds a lot of studies that have to do with the San Joaquin Valley that we really never see the results of locally. So I think that might be a good place to engage them as well on some of those studies. Thank you.
And Supervisor Mendez?
Yeah, I think one of the things you need to continue to use your good judgment moving forward and not get sucked into a grant that actually leads you down the path of using voodoo science and not real science. But I think you guys are really smart guys, and you're gonna figure that out and not jump into something like that. So I think that's really important, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of misinformation, bought fake science. So be careful.
Thank you very much. No further board comments. Do we have public comments?
Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any public comment in Modesto?
There are no public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. I have one member of the public in Fresno office.
Good morning again. Yes, Manuel Cunha, Nisei Farmers. It's short, but it's right to what I think Buddy Mendez, but also all of the board members have been talking about for the past years, past board members as well as today's board members and the staff. And that is the Policy Study Agency that was developed in the 90s to deal with the Seacoast and the Sarmac study, the $60 million study that was shown. And that agency has EPA folks, it had the utility, even had Edwards Air Force Base, agriculture, business, and every part of that was part of that whole entire study agency. And that group had also the ARB scientific staff, along with our staff, with a person by the name of Jim Sweet, in fact, in one of your staff. So it's very important that any studies being done on this type should go through the study agency and not through some private university that suddenly wants to do science without the inclusion of this district and all of the partners, which are the scientific community, which is EPA, this district, ARB, and even if it has to be Cal EPA, but it has to go through the study agency. If not, you have science that isn't valued at all, and it's misrepresenting. And so I would really encourage that anything we do in the future for even the SIP in any of this part, so we don't have to duplicate stuff that's already been done and it's valid. Other states have used the research that the SARMAP and the Seacoast study have done. And I commend this board for being very astute about this in the 90s. And today the Seacoast or the study agency is still alive and it still does things. So I would just ask that we continue that scientific approach by this board and the others rather than the science that is just garbage. And thank you.
Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you. We have Cynthia Pinto Cabrera online.
Hi, good morning, folks. Cynthia Pinto Cabrera with the Central Valley Air Quality Coalition. Thanks, John, for that presentation. Really looking forward to some of the upcoming research that Valley Air District is doing, particularly on PM 2.5. And I'd like to just briefly continue to encourage CVAC, and other folks have brought up ammonia in the past, and I just wanted to continue to uplift that. And I think it'll tie in really nicely with some of the comments being made by board members about needing to, understand some of the localized impacts, especially like geography wise on what's impacting our communities, to continue to bring some of that like AB 617 funding into our communities. So really want to emphasize ammonia, and hope we can do some research on that. There's great work being done by folks at Earth Justice Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability related to ammonia and dairies. So really interested in seeing some of that hopefully come to fruition in the next year or so, especially as EPA is working on potentially lowering that PM 2.5 standard. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next online, we have Connie Young.
Yeah, I'm still Connie Young. It may come as no surprise to you that I'm very pleased and relieved to see that you will be prioritizing research on the nexus between air quality and climate change. As you know, for the last 5 years, that has been my personal agenda item at these meetings, and I'm delighted that you are publicly addressing this issue. Former Fresno Mayor Ashley Swearingen once called Fresno ground zero for climate change. In some respects, our region is also ground zero for air pollution. Given the leadership role that the Valley Air District already has in our state, if we can get a handle on the nexus between air pollution and climate change, our air district could lead the way on this challenging issue, not only in California, but for other regions with similar conditions across the US and indeed around the world. I will look forward to learning from you as you learn more about this problem and tackle it head on. You have no idea how much this means to me. I'm also pleased that you will be studying wildfires and hosting an air quality symposium. Regarding that symposium, I hope you'll consider collaborating with the physicians at UCSF Fresno, who regularly host an air quality and climate change symposium. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next online, we have Janet Dietz-Kamay.
Thank you. This is Janet Dietz-Kamay. Thank you, Connie, for your comments. I speak as the canary in the mine. There have been many bad days regarding PM 2.5 during the inversion months, especially every year during the inversion months. Charts may show reductions in air pollution, particularly to PM 2.5, but it's those who are breathing the air who are the final analysis of what we are breathing, especially those of us who have asthma and those who have other respiratory diseases. As previously mentioned, we now have a freeway going through the area and a business park that is being built between Fowler and Armstrong and Rancher Creek Drive and Harvey Avenue, which is going to contribute to the worsening of air for many, many, many residents in this area. Wildfires are our new source of PM 2.5. Sadly, this is a result of climate change. The environment in our forests has changed. It is warmer than it was years ago. And the trees that were accustomed to the environment before are not well adapting to the environment we have now. So wildfires are something we can just expect to be in our pollution environment. Looking forward to a symposium is something I appreciate. We have a different environment now than we did before, and we should look to our scientific funded reports regarding the circumstances under which we now live. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further indication of public comment online.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So I understand this item is a discussion item and for the board to accept the staff report. Is that correct? Okay. No action to be taken.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Congratulations. You got us through a discussion too. Well done.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 10 to receive the update and attainment planning efforts for the federal PM 2.5 standards. No, that's what we just finished. I'm sorry.
That's right.
I accidentally crossed that one out. Was that for a reason?
Wishful thinking.
Okay, good morning again. Members of the board, John Klassen, Director of Air Quality Science and Planning. I'm joined by Emily Nealon, Program Manager. We're going to provide this update to you. So a bit of background here. As you know, we have a lot of challenges here in the San Joaquin Valley for air quality. It's really due to a unique combination of our topography and meteorology. We're surrounded by mountain ranges. We have weather conditions that place a lid over the bowl of the valley for long periods of time. We also have major goods movement corridors throughout the valley, population growth, pollution transport from other areas, and wildfires. And this makes it very difficult for us. And we have to reduce our emissions significantly more than other regions to meet the air quality standards. just a little bit of background on PM 2.5 to present this. So PM 2.5, this is any particle that's 2.5 microns or smaller in diameter. So these can be very small. The image on the right-hand side shows the size of a human hair. The blue spheres on there, those blue circles, that's PM10. And then within there, you can see PM 2.5, where there's 4 PM 2.5 particles that can fit within the diameter of a PM10 particle. So these are very small particles that can get deep into your lungs when you breathe them in. This can be a mixture of solid particles or liquid droplets in the air. These can be emitted directly through different processes or formed indirectly through secondary chemical reactions between different gases can then form together and create particulate matter. And this has an effect on human health. You can see on the right-hand side, the image there, you can see how the particles can get deeper into the lungs. The smaller the particles are, the deeper they can get into the lungs. They can enter the bloodstream and cause a number of health issues that we have here on the slide. Premature death in people with heart or lung disease, aggravated asthma, increased respiratory symptoms, decreased lung function in children, irregular heartbeat or non-fatal heart attacks, respiratory and cardiovascular hospitalizations, bronchitis and lung cancer, and other issues. So what agencies are involved in PM 2.5 planning or attainment planning in general? There are 3 agencies here that we list. The US EPA on the top, they are the ones that set the national air quality standards. They provide oversight over the nation's implementation of the Clean Air Act. Then the California Air Resources Board is our state agency that has oversight over air quality planning in California. They have direct jurisdiction over mobile sources, cars, trucks, off-road equipment. And then us here at the San Joaquin Valley, we also work with CARB to develop our local attainment plans, and we have jurisdiction over some area sources, mostly stationary sources like processing plants, industrial facilities, and some area sources like residential wood burning. We work together to put together state implementation plans or SIPs that can lead the valley to attain these air quality standards. And we've been doing this for a number of decades. We show this chart commonly, and this is in our boardroom, showing how much has changed over the past over 40 years, reducing emissions throughout a number of different areas. Over a 93% reduction in stationary source emissions, about a 75% reduction overall in NOx throughout the region. And NOx reductions are key for both controlling both ozone and PM 2.5, so that's a really key precursor for us. Between what we've done here locally and what CARB has done for mobile source emissions controls, it really is the toughest emissions control program in the nation. This is coupled with our strong incentive program. $4.5 billion have been spent in public and private investment. And through all these efforts, we continue to improve the valley's air quality. And we wanted to show this again, just how much has changed in the valley for PM 2.5. On the left-hand side is on a 24-hour basis. That's a daily average. You can see how much that's changed going from about 20 years ago to where we are now. Then on the right-hand side, that's an annual average, again, showing how much has changed in reducing year-round PM 2.5 throughout the region. Our latest plan that addresses the PM 2.5 standards, this was our 2018 PM 2.5 plan that was adopted a number of years ago. And this was the main strategy to bring the region into attainment of the 3 PM 2.5 standards that were set in 1997, 2006, and 2012. This plan included a comprehensive control strategy that included stationary source measures, mobile source control measures, incentive-based strategies, and investment into technologies to continue to bring cleaner equipment into the region. And there have been a lot of emissions reductions that have occurred because of the implementation of this plan that have already happened through different measures your board has adopted over the past few years. We've also made a revision to this plan in October of 2021, specifically for the 1997 standard, and EPA has that in front of them, and they're reviewing that currently. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Emily to give us some more background on some recent PM 2.5 actions and our contingency measure analysis.
Good morning, Ms. Vice Chair and your board. Emily Nealand, again, Program Manager of our Air Quality Planning team here at the district. So in regards to the PM 2.5 plan, EPA has approved some key portions of the plan, but significant actions still remain with EPA for their action. Specifically for the 1997 PM 2.5 standard, the district and CARB submitted the SIP revision that John just mentioned. That's still with EPA for approval. We submitted that back in October of 2021. For the 2012 PM 2.5 standard, the district and CARB are currently working on an updated plan in response to EPA reversal on their prior proposed approval of that portion. And then the fun part, contingency measures, we're going to talk a little bit about later in this presentation. We are currently working with CARB to address these evolving requirements, and we're still awaiting EPA guidance. As you know, EPA disapproval or inaction can result in devastating consequences to the Valley. Federal sanctions could be imposed on the Valley, federal implementation plans could occur. And so we currently have sanctions clocks running for both contingency as well as other plan elements, which have 18 and 24-month timeframes attached to them. EPA is currently obligated to either approve a contingency submission from the district or develop a proposed federal implementation plan by July 31st of this year under a recently signed consent decree. And we're currently working with CARB to support EPA in evaluating the high level of stringency of both of our programs for stationary and mobile source programs, and that there's limited opportunities for contingency measures and holding them in reserve instead of implementing them now. So I know we talked about this last month, but contingency measures have a lot of complexity to them and a number of challenges. Specifically, the Valley is designated as non-attainment under multiple national ambient air quality standards. And so not only do we have to create contingency measures for one standard, we have to do it for all of them. So there's a scarcity of measures out there for us to use. There's also, the district and CARB are also implementing the most stringent measures feasible. We're leading the nation in all of our regulations, so it's difficult for us to find anything that we're not already implementing. We also have to have our contingency measures achieve high emission reductions. And so because we're implementing the most stringent measures feasible, the measures that we can identify don't achieve the amount of emission reductions that are needed. Contingency measures also have to be triggered automatically under the current interpretation. And so many control technologies are not able to be installed and put into operation immediately. And then lastly, there's a scarcity of measures that fit the constraints of contingency and the definition, which has just continued to evolve in recent years. So as I mentioned, we're currently working with the California Air Resources Board to develop an updated contingency SIP package and measures. And while we're facing the deadlines and sanctions, the EPA has yet to release their updated guidance. They have mentioned that new draft guidance is anticipated in the near future, but we're still awaiting that. And we're meeting regularly with EPA and CARB to understand this guidance that's going to be coming out, as well as address questions as we're putting together our SIP strategy. And we're also requesting and continue to emphasize to EPA that we need to have their fair share for a measure for federal mobile sources under their jurisdiction. So the district has continued to evaluate our opportunities for contingency measures. Through this, we've been looking at our evaluations done as part of our recent SIPs. Specifically, the 2022 ozone plan included a comprehensive evaluation of our NOx and VOC rules, and as well as our 2018 PM 2.5 plan evaluated our PM 2.5 and NOx rules. And specifically for the 2018 PM 2.5 plan, EPA approved that as meeting the most stringent measures feasible in July of 2020, and this was upheld in court in April of 2022. Additionally, there was a recent EPA Interstate Transport Federal Implementation Plan, or FIP, in March of 2023, so this month, which included emission limits that other areas are going to have to implement. And the district is already implementing more stringent requirements within our rules. So based on our analysis, there's limited opportunities for technologically feasible measures for the Valley. And we've been, as I mentioned, having continued conversations with CARB and EPA on our evaluation. And additional district analysis is currently happening on sources of interest, specifically for residential wood burning, dust from rural open areas, commercial underfire charbroiling, nut harvesting activities, as well as state and federal mobile sources. So we're going to continue to potentially pursue opportunities through upcoming plan revisions, or we may hold some of these measures back for contingency. So first, for the measures that we're currently considering is Rule 4901, which is our rule for residential wood burning. Most recently, it was approved by EPA as meeting the most stringent measures requirement. So our measure would establish a tiered approach of a progressively more stringent curtailment level upon each trigger within the rule upon EPA determination that the Valley failed to meet any reasonable further progress requirement meaning that we're making progress toward attainment of the standard. Meet any quantitative milestone in an attainment plan, submit a quantitative milestone report, or attain the applicable PM 2.5 standard by its attainment date. And notably, a South Coast rule, Rule 445, contains a similar contingency provision. However, their contingency provision is less stringent than our current rule requirements. But EPA did fully approve their rule and contingency to meet contingency requirements in April of 2022. So here's one example we're currently looking at for the strategy. So upon a failure to attain, all counties would drop by 1 microgram from their current level 1. And then if a non-hotspot county experienced monitoring values that cause the exceedance to fail to attain, then they would drop to the hotspot level 1 and level 2 curtailment levels. And then for a valley-wide contingency issues such as failure to meet RFP or a quantitative milestone report, all counties would then be subject to the hotspot curtailment levels. We're also looking at opportunities for District Rule 8051, which is our rule for open areas, which is a vacant portion of residential or commercial lots and contiguous parcels that are not immediately adjacent to and owned or operated by the same individual or entity. So this is not applicable to ag sources, and ag sources are currently subject to our CMP rule, so they would not be captured into this. The current requirement in the rule is for urban open areas greater than half an acre and rural open areas greater than 3 acres. If they're disturbing 1,000 square feet or greater, they have to limit their dust opacity to no greater than 20%. So the potential measure that we're looking at is amending that 3-acre rural applicability threshold to a lower level upon the issuance of a contingency trigger by EPA. And this is a source category that was suggested to the district by EPA during our consultation and meetings with them, based on a contingency measure that was adopted in Imperial County. And the Imperial County measure only included a couple of the required contingency triggers. It did not include the failure to attain trigger, and there was no quantified emission benefit, but EPA still approved this regulation as meeting contingency requirements in August of 2019. We're also continuing to evaluate opportunities for commercial underfire charbroiling and almond harvesting. For underfire charbroiling, we've been continuing to look at this source category for a number of years for a regulatory approach. So we're continuing our evaluation of feasible technologies. Some considerations include that many of these technologies are not demonstrated or available commercially. There's also fire certification issues for a number of the technologies that are currently out there. There's excessive capital and maintenance costs, as well as some feasibility issues for existing restaurants, such as structural problems, electrical problems. And there's also a need for a new certification program in order to provide the necessary assurances to restaurants that they reduce emissions, they're durable, and that there's safety and warranty. For almond harvesting, we've worked closely with USDA, NRCS, CARB, and the ag sector to test and demonstrate low dust nut harvesting technologies through our CMP program. We launched a new program, a demonstration program, as part of the 2018 PM 2.5 plan, which was supported by local, state, and federal funding. And the USDA NRCS also offers incentives for lower dust harvesting practices. Some considerations include the need for continued research, testing, and certification of these latest technologies, and as well as a need for enhanced state and federal funding, such as through the Inflation Reduction Act. So for both of these source categories, we'll continue to evaluate and we'll provide additional updates and recommendations here in the coming year. So with that, I'll pass it back over to John to close out the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Just to note here again, we talked about this a number of times, but we need strong support from EPA to meet the Clean Air Act requirements in the Valley. We need their support. Emissions from federal mobile sources that they have jurisdiction over. We're now at the point now where those emissions are higher than mobile sources that CARB has control over, that we show on this graph on the top right-hand side. You can see that yellow line now being higher than the blue line, and going forward, those two diverge and the difference becomes larger and larger. So we need strong support from EPA to get those emissions reductions from interstate trucks, locomotives, aircraft, other off-road sources. There are a lot of opportunities under IRA, the bipartisan infrastructure law, to get new funding to help support all of this. So we're focused very closely on this. But we must prioritize some different areas through these efforts and opportunities. Areas in extreme and serious non-attainment like ours, environmental justice, communities, affordable housing, and sustainable community efforts, and areas with port and freight, sustainable ag, forest management, and other energy programs. So we have a strong focus on this. Another area of support we need from EPA, which Emily gave an overview of, we're still awaiting guidance from EPA on how we're supposed to meet these new contingency requirements. EPA has been developing guidance. We've been waiting for this since last fall. It's been a number of months. We're still waiting for this guidance to come out, which will give us some clarity and direction on how we're supposed to meet these requirements. So we're watching for this very closely, but it's making it very challenging for us to put together a contingency package that's going to meet new requirements if we haven't seen those requirements yet. So we're still waiting for that to come out. But despite that delay, we're still working together with CARB, putting together some concepts, some ideas, putting together a package that will fulfill the requirements as best as we can. And just on public process for contingency, we are holding a workshop next week. Next Wednesday, we're going to do a public workshop on contingency, talk about the work that we're doing, where we are in our evaluation and next steps forward. And we'll have some commenting periods before eventually bringing the package to your board for consideration sometime in the second quarter of this year. And then it will go to EPA through CARB for EPA's review. Last few notes here, we did want to mention too that we are beginning work on our plan for the 2012 PM 2.5 standard. This plan was originally due on December 31st, 2023. This was incorporated within our 2018 PM 2.5 plan early. EPA did propose approval of this plan some time ago. They then reversed their proposed approval and disapproved the plan, proposed to disapprove. Us and CARB then withdrew the plan. So because of that, we're now working through this plan again, the different plan elements to resubmit this. So there are a few elements that are due in June of this year: the emissions inventory, the precursor analysis, our control measure analysis, and non-attainment new source review. So we're working through those elements now to get that to EPA by June. And then a few more elements will be due at the end of this year in December: the emissions control strategy, the modeling analysis, a demonstration of attainment, and some other plan elements. So we do have a workshop for this also next week. Next Thursday, we're going to provide some detail on where we are with this process, what this plan will include. And there may be some additional analysis for the 2006 PM 2.5 standard included in this plan as well. This last slide here just shows the process we'll be going through over this next year. You can see a couple of timelines here. The top timeline is for those initial plan elements due in June of this year. So you can see we're having a workshop next week. We'll do another workshop in the spring and then bring the package to your board by June. And then the second half of the year are all the other plan elements. So we'll have a number of more workshops along the way before bringing it to your board by the end of the year for consideration. That's it for our update. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Hey, thank you, John and Emily, for your seamless joint effort to present this to the board. So I'll move to board comments on this. Okay, we have Supervisor Rickman in the north.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Just real quick, in regard to the potential contingency measures, if you're gonna reduce the acreage, would there be an exemption, or can you make an exemption if that route is chosen to exempt, for example, fire breaks? And we talk about forest fires, but you rarely hear about the fast-moving grass fires like you see in the canyons and the foothills. I mean, we just discussed on item 9 the impact of wildfires on valley air quality, how it's been the most severe wildfire season on record, and as a result, the PM 2.5 highest concentration ever recorded. So my fear is if you don't have that type of exemption for the lower level areas, then I mean, what you're doing, you're threatening structures, you're residential, commercial, and industrial, because we are seeing more of those types of buildings going into those types of areas. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I could just, quick response to that, and then I'll turn it over to John and Emily, who could dive deeper if I missed something on that. Do you want to, if I, through the vice chair? So yeah, it's a great question. You know, we certainly have tried to communicate the realities on the ground of implementing, you know, these types of measures and why there's you know, the rule is written the way that it is, and the importance of, I think, two main factors here. You know, one, Supervisor, is the fire safety issue that, you know, which is the primary reason when you live in a rural community that you typically would want to disc your field around your property. There's legal issues actually with that as well. Like if you if you don't take care of that property, you know, with a fire marshal or other agencies, so there's a lot of reason why you need to do this. There's also drought. It's hard to talk about the drought when there's been so much water, but we're still, you know, in the midst of some form of, you know, I think with an eye towards the SGMA issues and water shortage issues that, you know, still is something that the Valley faces major challenges with. So one of the first mitigations for looking at dust, you know, is often, well, can you just water, you know, can you water the field or you know, apply water? And so that's something that is another kind of conflicting force with that. So we'll continue engaging to make sure those issues are identified. There are ways that you can handle these materials that would comply with a 20% opacity, but there are cons as well to those. So there's an evaluation that needs to be happening around. So for example, if you mow the field, you're actually, you know, you can comply with the rule by mowing, but then you've got to do that, you know, disking will take care of it for a longer period of time than mowing. There's cost issues with having to do that more frequently. You know, you may not get exactly what you want out of the mow, but mowing is one option. You can slow the process down a bit. You know, I think that might get you below the 20% opacity, but then that's also another cost issue and another just a feasibility issue in terms of whether you can really slow it down that much. So you bring up a really good point, and I think as we think about this measure, it is important that the realities on the ground of implementing these suggestions is taken into account as we work with EPA in considering measures like these for contingency, the realities of what rural communities face. So I appreciate you bringing up that point, and we'll certainly see whether there's an ability to reflect that in the way that the measure is designed.
Thank you, Samir. Through the chair, I mean, if you look at what you just mentioned, the wet weather, these storms we're having, like how much fuel we're going to be having here in the summer months, and I just think that, you know, a lot of this is just common sense kind of going out there. So thank you, Chair, and thank you, Samir.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have Supervisor Mendez.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Rickman. Common sense left the board. We had a couple of common sense board members. So it's always good when we get replaced by another common sense person. Good job. You know, we actually had two people for first time presenters today.
Oh, I presented last time.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's right. I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I wasn't the first meeting I've ever missed in 9 years. But anyway, you know, on the almond thing, you know, we're going into a deal. You know, we're in going in completed a second year of really low prices. You know, because we're going to be asking people to, you know, hey, you know, you got to put your share, even if we come up with grants. And we're also going to go into a year of an extremely small crop. I don't think Roger will argue with that back there because of what we've had cold, you know, weather, a lot of sub 55 degree weather when bees should be out pollinating. So we're going to have to be stepping very carefully in the next year to an industry that's really, really hurting. So I just wanted to bring that up. And
thank you, Supervisor. I'd just like to bring a comment also to this presentation, and especially in regards to EPA's contingency guidance and them not moving forward or having anything for us at this point. You know, I kind of look at the federal government as an octopus. You know, you've got this big head up there and all these tentacles out there, and they don't touch each other, and they all have their own power. And so it's really important for them to make sure that they meet the commitment as the governing agency in our country, to give the guidelines out to the various states and communities as to what they desire to have done so that we can get the work done that we need to do. But I also am very positive to be reassured, I should say, that our staff is going to move forward with what they have to do regardless of EPA to make sure that we have a contingency to submit to them and we can move forward. And whatever happens after that, I'm sure our staff will take care of that as well. So we have another comment from Dr. Pacheco-Warner.
Yeah, just really, I think not everyone, and certainly I think members of the public really, you know, should know that our staff have been working on this, you know, and meeting with EPA at least weekly, probably daily on some issues. And so I really appreciate you really digging into this and wanting to get it right. And thank you, you know, also for your patience on that. And I think, you know, certainly on my end, definitely, you know, pushing for EPA clarity as soon as possible and wanting to make sure that, you know, these efforts don't go in vain. And so just really want to thank you for that, and actually really want to thank you for the workshop next week and the additional workshop in April or May, and then the additional summer workshops that I think will provide that necessary platform for community engagement as needed. And definitely, I think when I hear at the CARB level, some of the communities that have, for example, not been able to be, you know, 617 communities, I think them learning about some of the things that we're looking to adopt, I think would be really happy to learn and, or, you know, have further questions on that. So really appreciate you.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no further board comment, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Mr. Preciado.
Yes, I just would like to make a comment regarding local control. I think when other agencies take a saying and they don't really see what our communities are doing, what our business people are doing, what our farmers are doing, they're really trying to comply and they're doing a lot with less money, less funding every time. And I think that we need to find a way where we can get to the top of those agencies and make them realize that we're struggling and we need the help, and we need to work together to, you know, we'll keep asking our communities to do more. And I believe they're doing less, and there's somehow we need to find a way to put more pressure and get something done, like the Air District been doing it for so long, and you know, they recognize that at the national level, but now it is time that they do more for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further board comment? If not, we'll move forward to public comment.
Bakersfield, do you have any members of the public that would like to comment?
No comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comment?
There is no public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. I do have one member of the public in Fresno.
That's not your seat, man. You're
Yeah.
just over there.
Lewis, Chairwoman, I want to make sure, I'm here right at, so I don't waste time. Again, Manuel Cunha Farmers, I want to thank John and Emily very, very much for all the work and how many different staff we've had involved in this SIP since the happening of EPA's taking it. But I think you saw the word of contingency, how a federal agency We have to have it by June. Can't even come up with contingencies. Now, if EPA wants to throw the board on agriculture, which continually happens, is being discussed, two ways that happened in 1990. And that was no farm days at all in a reg called Reg 8. And some of the folks from the staff remember Reg 8. And it actually had no farm days. You couldn't farm at all. So the cows would have to stop making milk. So we're going to go out there and put plugs on them, you know, or chickens or human beings. And so now we come up with this stuff that at the end, what agriculture is doing, some of you are tomorrow will be coming to a demonstration or some of the things you've done for small farmers and farmers on equipment. But if we do contingencies, I don't know how you're going to do it. I would hope that we get credit for Sigma. Sigma hits everybody, but the farmers on the west side are going to lose about 500,000 acres. The governor's proposing to put solar in. Look at the heat that that's going to generate. Plus the different type of rainfall, when it does come, solar panels are going to be the roof. And how that water is going to come off those fields and cause damage. But again, Sigma is going to take away 500,000 acres. And that's probably the end of it. Because we're going to throw concrete on that stuff. Rather than turning it into reservoirs or ponds with water to sub into the soils. But yet, to go after and tear up Avenal's landfill or to tear up the farmers, no more dairy cows, because I always see dairy cows. And the amount of research that's been done on ammonia with dairies from Texas A&M and all of them has been tremendous. But I'm just greatly concerned is how far are they going to make this valley go when EPA isn't doing its job? And to come after agriculture, especially they've come after ag. If you don't want no farm days, that's fine. We'll quit farming, but that means no food to the system. But to have that type of strategy with no science, no facts, no more food, no more farm days, because I know that discussion has come up in EPA Region 9. I know it has. It came up in February. I got some little mouse came to me and told me. It was a big mouse too. So I think we need to be very cautious and not let EPA tell us and do things without facts they need to provide to us and to the staff. And I commend you, John, the entire team, Samir. You guys have gone through, excuse the expression, Chairman, hell. And you're doing a good job, and we're there to help keep this valley alive and keep our rural communities alive and not just let San Francisco or LA run amok. They can do what they want. I don't care. But this valley is too important for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Another member of the public in Fresno.
Hello, my name is Dr. Karolina Simunovic. It's been a long time since I've spoken in front of this group, but about 20 years ago when the maps were shown where the air was much dirtier, I was a clean air advocate. I was so moved by this work that I actually went on to medical school and became a physician. I'm so happy to see Dr. Sheriffs on this board representing the people of the Valley that need this agency to be a healthcare, not a healthcare, a health agency, a public health agency for the entire San Joaquin Valley. I work for Kaiser Permanente, and I want to bring a different perspective because we do have the opportunity to hear very often in this room, and I'm sure for the years that I was gone, how agriculture and other industries are affected. But now my industry, the medical industry, is very important to me because in that industry, I get to care for others. And I was very saddened to learn that a colleague of mine, a Mohs surgeon, for those who don't know, because I'm a dermatologist, Mohs surgeons take very delicate care to remove the skin cancers off of faces and other delicate parts. More than 50% of people in our San Joaquin Valley have had a skin cancer, will have one. This surgeon who makes over $500,000 and has been given extra incentives to work in the San Joaquin Valley, him and his wife, who is also a physician for our medical group, also making significant money, big taxpayers, big industry, big contributions. They've chosen to leave right after having their first child. And the reason they cited, not their colleagues, not the community, which they actually like and enjoy, but the air quality. And then I thought, oh, but we've been working so hard. And so your work impacts other agencies, perhaps more indirectly than how you might appreciate. You are not fining Kaiser Permanente Hospital per se, but your work is so important because the professionals and the people that we need to come back to this valley who didn't have roots in this valley. I came back, my family is here. I wanted to continue to contribute to here, but those who come new and like it, but for one reason or another, you know, you have a child, everything changes, and they make those decisions to leave. We are dealing with a physician shortage in this valley. We need better ways to recruit physicians. We're seeing hospitals close. This work, this PM 2.5 plan, and whatever contingencies may come, I understand that it's the heavy arm of the EPA and it can be so frustrating. I just want to speak as an individual, as a physician, as a member of the Fresno Madero Medical Society as well, but mostly as an informed individual, that your work is so important and that the businesses and the people that are affected, big businesses, big industries, feel the impact from our air pollution problem. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go to online.
Online, we have Janet Dieskame.
Thank you. We put many years and hours to the PM 2.5 plan. And this was with an eye on the impending contingency or possible contingency measures. I had hoped that PM 2.5 would be better controlled from the PM 2.5 plan by now. Conversion years are the worst, except for when we are affected by wildfires, which tend to affect us in the summer and fall months. I'm still using masks and restricting the amount of time I spend outside. I had no asthma when we moved here in 2003. It took only about 3 years for me to have my first asthma attack. This is a problem. This is a definite problem. One plan that I have supported, I have suggested, I have urged is banning residential wood burning. That would reduce a lot of PM 2.5 that we have in this valley. Banning residential wood burning. Now, there are some who rely on fireplace warmth. Of course, they would be accepted. But the majority of people in this valley have other sources of heat. Fortunately, new homes are not including fireplaces. However, outdoor fireplaces and fire pits still exist, and they also should be banned. I have been a participant of this plan. I have urged the wood burning ban. I would like to remind you that your title is air pollution control. That is your mission. That is your focus. Air pollution control. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. No further indication of public comment online.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So I would assume again that
through the chair, I'm sorry, there was one more comment
Okay.
that just came on. Veronica Aguirre.
She doesn't raise her hand in time. We move on.
Hello, this is Veronica Aguirre again. I apologize. I thought I had pushed the button, and I guess I didn't. So my apologies. I just wanted to take this time to also express the fact that communities like the one in which I live in, Avenel, rural communities like ours, we count on leaders. We count on the air district to make decisions that are responsible, that protect the health of those that live in our communities. Speaking about the landfill, those that want to protect the landfill should come and live by it. come and live by it and have to deal with the disgusting nuisance of odors that we've had to deal with for years and years. And people want to get on and defend something like that, knowing that there is health issues. There's a number of people in our community that suffer from pulmonary illnesses such as asthma and other types of illnesses, and we want to sit here and defend polluters. We count on the Air District to help give violations, to help tell them that what they're doing is wrong. We, in our communities, we need help. And I understand there's issues that you have to deal with on a daily basis, or that I'm sure you're looking into. But the fact that we have brought this to the Air District's attention, it's been, I think, since right before COVID that we brought this to your attention, that we've been having to deal with this issue. What am I talking about, sir? I'm sorry, what are you whispering?
I'm sorry. Keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just, I thought I had 3 minutes and then I could hear somebody speaking. So I thought maybe my time was up.
Okay, no, you still have 1 minute and 10 seconds. Are you still there? Okay,
No further public comments.
that's it. I see Roger.
Sorry, I know I'm behind you. Roger Ice from California Cotton Ginners and Growers and Western Agricultural Processors Association. Just a couple of things. One, it's unfortunate the way that the EPA has handled this. We could have avoided this long ago, and the plan was submitted. So I'd start with that. But I'd say from the agricultural industry perspective, we have been committed for a long time to trying to resolve these issues and get in front of the issues, whether it be through research that we've done with the district and with USDA, or through the incentive programs that we've lobbied so hard for, whether it be farmer funding and Carl Moyer at the state level or DERA at the federal level. If we really want to make a difference, we ought to start there. And one of the biggest issues right now is the fact that farmer funding has been dropped from the budget. And I understand it's a deficit budget, but we're still funding things like Healthy Soils and others. Those are not as important right now as farmer funding is. If we want to make an impact on air quality, if we want to make an impact on PM 2.5 and our ozone and address these things and avoid trying to get out there too far on contingencies, farmer funding is the answer. It's the easiest, most cost-effective thing this Air District or the Air Resources Board has ever done. And it helps on all the criteria pollutants. It helps on greenhouse gases emissions, and it helps on the toxic things that we talked about earlier. That needs to be funded. Those are the things that we can do to stay ahead of this. And I can assure you, again, from the ag industry side of things, we're already looking at the next farm bill. We're looking at expanding not just EQIP, but the Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP, so we can really start to help growers with low dust harvesters and low dust conditioners, things like that. We're thinking outside the box to try to help not only our growers in that, but also the Air District in trying to achieve these air quality standards. There's just a better way to do it, and that's the way we think we should be doing it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? I see no one else. Okay, no one online.
No further indication of online comments.
Okay, and I'm sorry I missed most of that discussion. That was really important. This is an important component, and thank you to the Vice Chair for covering for me. And so we're just receiving this, the update, and so now we'll move on to item number 11, I'm sorry, verbal report on California Air Resources Board activities.
Second time I come right when the teacher calls me today. Thank you so much. I think right now one of the things that I really want to keep your eye towards is that at the April meeting, so not next week's meeting, but at the April meeting, we will be voting on the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation, which is the medium and heavy duty zero emission transition regulation. And so encourage your different entities to be part of that last public process. And definitely as a participant of the subquorum for that, have definitely voiced some of our issues brought it from this board onward to CARB. And then I will also say that, you know, I also working with CARB on the PM 2.5 issues and ensuring their engagement and cooperation with the district, and hoping to have lots more public support as that kind of the plan gears closer as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Dr. Pacheco Warner? Okay, seeing none. Move on to the Executive Director report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to just cover a couple of quick things for the board. Well, first, thoughts and prayers out to all the residents that are impacted by the flooding. I know there's a lot of activity, a lot of emergency efforts that are going on. So we're definitely all here thinking about all our residents that are impacted by that. And wanted to highlight, there's an event that was referred to earlier. That's another great opportunity for us working with Valley Agriculture to highlight the funding and opportunities for small farming operations. There's actually an event tomorrow where we want to bring together a variety of equipment and leaders to talk about these opportunities and hopefully draw even more attention to the great work that's going on in Valley Agriculture, everything from the cleanest tractors to electric utility terrain vehicles, even electric new tractors that are becoming available, low dust harvesters across the board, just different types of equipment, and with an eye towards how do we support our Valley farmers continue to incorporate these into their fleet, building on the thousands and thousands of equipment that's already been replaced. So that's an event that we're looking forward to supporting tomorrow. The budget and legislative work continues. Just wanted to let the board know that there's been quite a bit of activity going on, a lot of committee meetings where the various parts of the budget have been discussed. It's kind of a gloomy budget in a sense. There's predicted deficits relative to where the state has been in prior years, which has meant that there's been cuts across different programs. The farmer program was mentioned as one that was not included at all in the proposed budget as far as new funding goes. So there is quite a bit of advocacy going on around the benefits of these programs, and especially in a region like ours where we have mandates to meet. We have the demand for the programs, where we have $300 million of applications, for example, sitting in our queue today, just in our farmer program alone, and just a tremendous opportunity there, and really helping us meet these different mandates, and really not the time to see that slow down. So we're advocating very heavily on these fronts, and there's a number of bills that have direct impacts to the Valley Air District that we're watching very closely to make sure that it's clear what the efforts of this board are, all the work that we're doing right now, and where the real opportunities are to really invest in these different measures that are going on, and support this board in what we need to do. So we've been sharing those ideas and are hoping that our Valley delegation can continue to support those efforts in productive ways and in ways that actually help us with our challenges. Just lastly, well, maybe two more things real quick, if you would indulge me here. We have staff that are going to be at a variety of Earth Day events throughout the Valley. I think it's over 20 events I'm hearing from Jamie that we're participating in. So including the ones that were mentioned earlier. Connie did an amazing job of highlighting some of the local things that are going on, even at the expense of the first event that she talked about, which is, I appreciate that. So we're participating in all of these and are looking forward to engaging. And if you have any other ideas or things that maybe you've heard and maybe we haven't quite heard of, we'll keep ramping that up. And I did want to just mention that the concerns that were expressed around the Avenal landfill, that is something that we've actively been engaging in. We'll circle back with the community representatives to see if there's
got one right here.
Yeah, so
on the end of the-
we'll circle back on those issues. There's been town halls, a lot of education, a lot of response to these different concerns. I just wanted to mention that it's something that's ongoing, and we look forward to continue working with the community to address any concerns that may come up there. I just want to note that there is a very active effort there and just trying to pull in, all the relevant agencies as well. It's quite a complicated situation. There's, city, county, us, other involvement there, and just looking forward to continuing to understand what those concerns may be and how to respond to those. So I'll close with that, and thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. I'm happy to take any questions.
Just ask you to please lean on board members as necessary when it comes to advocacy work with at least the San Joaquin Valley's electeds.
Well, I was going to mention that. Is there anything that we can take back to our respective boards or councils to advocate for that? I mean, it's ironic that we have the top 3 ag producing counties in the nation in our district and the worst air, and they're going to take away this program. So whatever we can do, if you can send us something that we can advocate for, write letters, anything like that, I think we'd all be on it.
Yeah, that would be tremendous, Supervisor, and we'll circle with you, and there is information available, and really appreciate that offer. I think it's important for the legislators to hear from, all the wonderful local electeds that are, that directly, report to their constituents and are trying to help all of your constituents. I think that level of representation is really what is important in moving forward these programs. So I really appreciate that offer, and look forward to seeing that from the board. Thank you.
Vice Chair Lewis.
Thank you. I agree with Supervisor Sheklian. I know that for city officials, when there's a hot topic for a bill that's coming before our legislators, the League of Cities will notify us and send us sample letters of how they want us to address the problem. So with that in mind, if that's if that's what the avenue that you're going to take, to send a sample letter to us so that we can use that and lobby our colleagues to move forward with action on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, move on to item 13, governing board member comments. Any board member comments? Dr. Pacheco-Warner.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make you all aware, earlier this month, the Social Science Research Council, which is a national organization, released something called A Portrait of the Valley, where they did kind of like a human development index for the San Joaquin Valley, and looked at different aspects of our valley. So I think for me, it was really informational just to see where the opportunities are in terms of ways in which our valley could be improved. And they did lots of analyses even by like sector when looking at earnings and things like that. So really educational, and also look forward to seeing if I can make any of those Earth Day events as well. So you guys pitched it hard, so we're gonna do that. Thank you.
Great comment, Supervisor Mendez.
Yeah, you were, talking about the weather and flooding earlier, but this is a marathon. We're, the snowpack going clear from, San Joaquin County clear down to the Tehachapi's, even is at record levels. In fact, even the Kings, I think the record was in 82, 83, was about 4.5 million acre feet of runoff. And it looks like we're already going to hit 5 million. And we still, and especially with these, we got another big storm coming. We're looking at it's going to be a cold storm, an Arctic storm, probably around the 1st of April, has a chance of hitting us. So this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're going to be fighting this clear until July. I think, unfortunately for my colleague here, I know in 69, I think on the Kauai and Tule both, they lost control of the dam, one of them for 20 days straight. And this looks like a bigger water year. So I keep telling our EOC group, this is, we're going to have ebbs and flows, but it's bad pun, but, we're gonna be at this clear until July.
Agreed.
only 7.
Vice Chair Lewis?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, the voters voted, I think it was back in 2010, 2009, to build more dams. And if we had, if our legislators had been obedient to the vote, we wouldn't be in this condition. But I hope, I would assume that most of our valley cities and county areas are using the excess water for ground recharging to help out with subsidence and just the loss of water. And hopefully for our agriculture district, especially on the west side where water was going to be terminated to our farmers, there should be no reason to do that anymore. But secondarily, I wanted to say I really hate to miss the event tomorrow. Had I known 1 week earlier, I would have been able to attend the Small Farmers Operation event, but I will be attending a Civic Well Policy Maker Conference. The information in general on that is going to be about sustainability solutions. There are roughly 20 speakers, and one I would assume our CEO knows is Alberto Yala, who's the executive director of the Sacramento Metro Air Quality Management District. So I'm looking forward to see what they have to offer and whether it's going to be good for our communities or not. So I'll be leaving here, going straight to the Monterey area, and we'll be returning Saturday night. So for you guys who pray for me that I can keep my eyes open all the way down to the Monterey area.
Hopefully you can get there.
Well, that was a concern about a lot of attendees as to whether or not they were going to be able to get into the conference. So hopefully there won't be any flooded areas down there to keep us from getting in. And it's going to be at the Asilomar Conference Ground. So I'm going to be finding my way to a new place that I've never been before.
Not a bad place to hang out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was supposed to be in Lake Tahoe, but we understand what happened there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I just want to thank Nancy. It's very nice. First time I think I've met you, but nice to see you stick around the whole meeting. And Roger and Manuel, it's nice to see public members showing up in person again. So again, if there's no other business for the good of the order, this meeting is adjourned at, I can't even tell you what time it is. That's wrong. That is incorrect. 11:41. Thanks.